Hello everyone, welcome back to another English online session. Today I am going to narrate the third chapter in the text Hornbill. The name of the chapter is Discovering Tut, the Saga Continues. This chapter was written by A.R. Williams. This was broadcasted as a documentary in National Geographical Channel related to this pharaoh, this powerful pharaoh. Many questions are unanswered. Many questions are yet to be answered. This chapter is about the last heir of the powerful Pharaoh Dynasty, Tutankhamun, who died when he was a teenager after ruling for 9 years. He died in a mysterious way. This chapter throws light over all the possible mysteries, the curse where his tomb lies, his life, and ultimately death. Egyptians believe that there is life after death, and that is the reason why the pharaohs were buried with wealth and everyday use items. These things were found in Tutankhamun's pyramid, and his body, his mummified body, was taken out, and they have done all the forensic reconstruction, everything to find the reason how he was died. So this particular chapter was written by A.R. Williams. Let me give you a brief outline about the writer. A.R. Williams developed a love for reading at a very young age, and in the fourth grade, when an assignment to write their own works of fiction was given, it occurred to him that he could craft tales for others to enjoy. A.R. Williams' works has appeared in Historic Fantasy, Quarterly, Three Crows Press, and Everyday Fiction. A.R. Received an honorable mention in the fourth quarter of the Writers of the Future contest in 2010. This is not a regular story which has imaginative background or fictitious characters. This is about a person belongs to a dynasty, Pharaoh Dynasty, which ruled Egypt some 3000 years back. All the details or facts presented here are true, and the details about King Tut or Tutankhamun, about his death. He was a teenager while he passed away, but nobody knew that it was a murder or a natural death. Still, it was a mystery. People are trying to figure out how exactly he was died. Many studies are going on. Now, let me give you a brief outline about King Tut, the points discussed in this chapter. Tutankhamun, also known as Tut, was a teenager when he died. He was the last successor of his powerful Pharaoh dynasty, which ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. He was laid on rest, heavily loaded with gold. His tomb was discovered in 1922, which made the world raise a question about what had happened to him and whether he had been murdered. After almost 80 years, his body was about to undergo a CT scan, which would give new information and clues about his life and death. His face would be recreated with the help of a procedure called forensic reconstruction. So these lines explaining about when this mummy was discovered, and the technology is used here to find out what exactly happened to him, especially CT scan and forensic reconstruction to recreate his face and find out what exactly happened to him, whether it was a murder or not. The next few lines were explaining what exactly happened when this mummy was taken out of the pyramid. A fast, strange, and unnatural wind was blowing as King Tut's body was taken from his grave called Valleys of the Kings, an ancient Egyptian cemetery. The location of the Valley of the Kings is given in the image. Dark clouds moved quickly across the desert all day long, and later they covered the stars. On January 5, 2005, at 6 p.m., King Tut's mummy, which is the world's most famous mummy, was placed in the CT scanner to investigate the mystery behind his death, which had occurred more than 3,300 years back. This mummy was special in many ways. The first thing is he was the last heir of the powerful dynasty. And second thing, nobody knew that how he died at a very young age, and this king was buried or mummified and kept in the pyramid with a lot of treasure. Very valuable things were found nearby his tomb, and this was or he was the first mummy scanned in the entire country. This was the first mummy scanned using CT scan to find out how he died. All afternoon, tourists visited the 26 feet deep underground rock cut tomb to pay respect to the king. Many people stuffed into the small tomb and looked in admiration at the murals on the walls of the chamber and took a look at the face of Tut that had been painted with gold. While visitors read the guidebooks in a hushed tone, some stood silently wondering about his untimely death in his teen years. They might also be wondering if the curse of the Pharaoh, which leads to the descent of misfortune upon the person who disturbs him, is true. So these lines are describing that many people used to visit this pyramid, and all the people who visit this pyramid, they have different questions. And some of them just check the tomb of the pharaoh Tut, and some they just talk about the superstitious beliefs around his life, and about the tomb and the pyramid, and all the people were curious about how he died untimely in his teenage. As Sahi Hawass, Secretary General of Egypt, leaned over the body to have a look, he said that the mummy was in a very bad condition because of what the British archaeologist Howard Carter did to it in the 1920s. He discovered King Tut's tomb in 1922 after a long search. The valuable treasures of Tut had been explored earlier too, but surprisingly, they were complete. The treasure found at Tut's grave is the richest till date, and has come to be known as the Pharaoh's legend. It has artifacts in gold which are eternally beautiful and as good as new. Such artifacts still get attention. Tut was buried with things of daily use like a razor made of bronze, games, linen, undergarments, and boxes of food and wine which he could use in the next life. Egyptians believed in afterlife, so when they mummified their king, they keep all the things he was using when he was alive, and they just keep ornaments. What are the things he needed after in the afterlife? Everything they keep with this mummy in that chamber. It's like a very big room. They keep everything whatever this person needed, because they believe that this person would use everything in his afterlife. Carter took a few months to record the treasures found in Tut's grave. Then he began investigating his three coffins, which were nested one in another in the first coffin. He found a piece of cloth with garlands of willow, olive leaves, wild celery, lotus petals, and cornflower, which suggested that he had been buried in the months of March or April. When he reached the third coffin, he was in trouble. The body had been hardened due to the resins which had cemented the body, and it had stuck to the bottom of the coffin, which was made of gold. Carter wondered what to do next, because no amount of force could separate the two. These are the details about what are the things Carter done. Howard Carter, a British archaeologist, done to this mummy, and it caused damage according to Saki Hawass. He just tried to separate this mummy to study more. He tried to separate the mummy from the coffin, and he found it very difficult to remove the mummy from the third coffin, which this mummy was kept, and it was cemented, stuck, glued, because of the use of resin. Carter tried to loosen the resins by keeping the body in the hot sun. He kept the mummy in 149 degrees Fahrenheit for several hours, but still it remained stuck. He reported that a chisel could be used to cut the mummy from the limbs and the trunk so that Tut's body could be taken out of the coffin. According to Carter, he had no choice other than to cut the mummy. He believed that if he hadn't done that, thieves would have removed the gold from the tomb and would have looted it. During Tut's time, the royal people were wealthy, and they had a belief that after death they could take the wealth along with them. That's why all the treasures, everything he was used, and the jewels, everything kept in the pyramid. Around the world, many pyramids were found like this, and nearby the tombs, the jewels, ornaments, all the valuable things were found, because these Egyptians believe in afterlife, so they keep even food and wine, whatever they used when they alive, everything, clothes, everything would be kept nearby their tomb. For his life after the death, he was given precious collars, necklaces, decorative patterns, bracelets, rings, amulets, ceremonial aprons, sandals, sheets for fingers and toes, and now an ironic inner coffin and a mask. His men removed his head and every joint of his body. After they finished, they reassembled the remains in a wooden box with the padding filled with a layer of sand to conceal the damage. It was his new resting place. In the past few decades, archaeology has changed as it now focuses on the details of life and the mysteries of death. Earlier, it was about focusing on the treasure. Now, it uses more advanced medical technologies and tools for research. In 1968, an anatomy professor x-rayed King Tut's mummy and revealed that the front limbs and breastbone were missing. In the process of research, Howard Carter and his fellow researchers done damage to the mummy of King Tut, but they have tried to conceal it. But in the year 1968, an anatomy professor just x-rayed this mummy and found the damages done by this Howard Carter in the process of his research. I'm going to stop the narration here. I will narrate the balance part of the summary in the next class. Now, all of you just read the text. Don't forget to have a dictionary while reading. Just find out the new words. See you in the next class. Bye.